What's up, guys? I'm Chris Spags here, back with another Four Corners for today's 10-game MLB main slate, courtesy of Osmo.com. 10 games on the slate, and no cores means you're going to have to make some tougher choices than we've probably had in the last few days. But right now, if you want to keep the power of positivity going for me, like this video. And also, if you want to win a free month of Osmo Plus, like the video and comment your double dong pick down below. Yesterday, there were no double dongs in Major League Baseball, but if we believe and we wish hard enough together, I think we can make it happen today. So right now, please like the video and comment your double dong pick down below. But as always, let's get on to our first corner on today's slate, the top pitching, and Garrett Cole in a matchup against Texas is top owned option industry-wide. Cole gets 2.6 implied runs against him, which are slate low, and he'll be number one owned on FanDuel with 37%, number one on Yahoo with 59%, and number two on DK with 40%. Garrett Cole remains filthy with a 39.4% K rate and a 2.5 xFIP, so even with an average 22.9% K rate for Texas' projected lineup, Cole is the guy to have on today's slate. Without a Coors game to pay for today, it seems like an easier spot to Garrett Cole than it was yesterday with Justin Verlander, and as we saw with Verlander, the floor is going to be really good for Cole today. Adrian Hauser versus San Diego should also find some ownership with the 3.5 implied runs against him. Hauser will be number one owned on DraftKings with 48% expected ownership, but he'll be less owned everywhere else. Hauser has a 3.7 xFIP and a 25% K rate at a reasonable price, going against the San Diego team with a 26.3% K rate versus right-hand pitching, and it does seem like Hauser is a very obvious value play today. Because of how obvious Hauser is as value, I could see going to some San Diego bats in a park upgrade as leverage, but Hauser's price is too good to ignore, and I imagine he's worth a good amount of exposure today on DraftKings. And Jake Odorizzi versus the White Sox should also find some ownership today with 3.7 implied runs against him. Odorizzi will be number two on FanDuel with 15%, as well as on Yahoo with 35%. Odorizzi is overpriced on DK, but his 26% K rate and cheaper prices on FanDuel and Yahoo make him more appealing going against the White Sox's 26% K rate versus right-hand pitching. Odorizzi has had some ups and downs this year, but he's had more good than bad, and against the White Sox team is going to offer up a lot of strikeouts. It makes sense to go to him on the sites where he's cheaper today. And now into our next corner on today's slate, the top stacks, and a Minnesota stack versus Ivan Nova looks like it should be popular today. Minnesota gets 6.3 implied runs, which are slate high, and Nova's 14% K rate will give Minnesota a lot of opportunity, even though his 5 xFIP and 190 ISO are lower than one may think. Minnesota has a 220 ISO versus right-hand pitching with 8 hitters over a 107 WRC plus in their projected lineup, so they deserve the chalk ownership even if they may be a bit overowned. Minnesota has a ton of power, and even though Ivan Nova has limited damage, well, he's not a good pitcher. It's a spot where it does seem like the Minnesota chalk looks good today, and it looks like a Seattle stack versus Dario Agrazal should find some ownership despite just 4.5 implied runs for them. Seattle's value prices will drive up ownership going against Agrazal's poor 6.2 xFIP and 11% K rate. Seattle has a 195 ISO on the year versus right-hand pitching, but they project as more of a value team than a high upside one with their mediocre team total and Agrazal's 5.5% barreled ball rate. Seattle is going to pop up a lot in optimizers as value, but the upside may not be there against a guy in Agrazal who doesn't get blown up very often, so I'm inclined to come under the field on Seattle today. And an Atlanta stack versus Zach Eflin should also find some ownership with the 5.5 implied runs for them. Eflin struggles versus left-handed batters with a 5.2 xFIP and a 223 ISO allowed, and now we'll see some strong ones in Atlanta's hitter-friendly park. Eflin has far less strikeout ability with a 19% K rate than a guy like Vince Velasquez did yesterday, so Atlanta could tee off with their 195 ISO versus right-hand pitching. Eflin is not too good, and Atlanta is a team with some power potential, so I could see going to them today, even though I might be more inclined for mini stacks than full stacks. Now into our next corner, the lower-owned options on the slate, and the Baltimore stack versus Clay Buchholz is one that interests me. Baltimore gets 4.9 implied runs, and it's a relatively high team total for Baltimore, with Buchholz allowing a 5.2 xFIP and a 12.3% barrel ball rate this year. Buchholz's low 13% K rate could be an issue in a good hitting park, despite a mediocre 167 ISO for Baltimore versus right-hand pitching. Baltimore is not the most exciting high upside stack to have, but Buchholz has looked so bad this year that I do think Baltimore is worth some exposure with that high implied total for them today. And Dinelson Lamet at Milwaukee also interests me with the 4.5 implied runs against him. Lamet has a 31% K rate on the year, while Milwaukee is bringing a 25% K rate versus right-hand pitching. It's a park downgrade for Lamet, but he projects well and has a 3.8 xFIP on the year that shows he's been as good as his other core stats would indicate. Milwaukee is a much weaker team without Christian Yelich in there, and Lamet has shown some big strikeout upside, so I like the spot for him, and once again, he does project really well according to Osmo. A Boston stack versus Jeff Samardzija also looks like an interesting option with the 5.6 implied runs for them. Boston projects to have a lefty-heavy lineup against Samardzija's 5.4 xFIP and 228 ISO allowed to left-handed batters. It should be a chilly day in Boston, but they bring a 198 ISO versus right-hand pitching without much ownership expected for a full stack today. Boston has some health issues and are not really playing for anything right now, but the spot versus Samardzija with a lefty-heavy lineup could be a good one today. And Spencer Turnbull at Cleveland is barely interesting with a 6.1 implied runs against him. Turnbull is a cheaper alternative to Adrian Hauser, who's limited power decently with a 151 ISO allowed. Turnbull isn't great, and Cleveland's 21.9% K rate versus right-hand pitching won't do him any favors, but he's cheap enough to be playable. There's not a lot to love about Turnbull, but he's limited power fairly well, and that's enough for me to get on him today McKay with a very low price. And now into our last corner of the one-offs, and Freddie Freeman once again makes an appearance versus Zach Eflin. Freeman again looks solid industry-wide with a 238 ISO versus right-hand pitching, while Eflin gives up a 229 ISO and a 4.5% home run rate. Freeman's price is down a bit, and after not showing much yesterday, I think he could be worth going back to today at less ownership. Arenado Nunez versus Clay Buchholz interests me as a value one-off. Buchholz is allowed a higher 172 ISO to right-handed pitchers with his 12.3% barrel ball rate, while Nunez is cheap with a 191 ISO versus right-hand pitching. It's a good park and a guy in Buchholz who really hasn't looked good this year, so I think the spot is a good one to go to a very cheap Arenado Nunez. And Chris Taylor versus Brendan McKay also looks like an interesting value one-off. McKay allows a 268 ISO to right-handed batters despite a 29% K rate, and Taylor is cheap with a 230 ISO and a 116 WRC plus versus left-hand pitching. McKay has been lit up by righty power all year, and Taylor is cheap and expected to be hitting the 3-hole, so that's a nice spot for him as a value play today. So there you guys have it. There are my thoughts on today's slate. So right now, please like this video, show a little love, and also if you want to win that free month of Osmo Plus, like the video and comment your double dong pick down below. And if you don't want to wait for the dying days of baseball to yield one of these double dongs, you can also use this promo code SWITCH&HEDGE for half off your first month. We also have a bunch of weekly passes for just $3.95, $3.95 a week at osmo.com/join. So head over there now and find a package that works for you. Go follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Chris Spags. You'll know whenever the four corners come out, as well as all the other NFL content I'm doing. So go check me out on Twitter and Instagram at Chris Spags. Go check out some of that NFL content, including the strategy show this morning with Lofty, which is always a good time for me on Wednesday mornings, and my column to Slant and Go, which is a really in-depth look at which plays are going to be the best for you in NFL DFS. So go check both those out. Otherwise, I'll be back later today on Live Before Lock and back on the Four Corners on Friday. So subscribe to that notification bell, and I'll see you guys again soon. Good luck.